It's the story from Ukraine you aren't hearing in the news. Jewish people there are afraid that the crisis could lead to persecution, and many of them are thinking about leaving the country.
Some groups are working to help these Jews in the midst of the turmoil. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
While the images of Russian troops, protests, and barricades dominate the news, behind the scenes, another drama is playing out.
The Jews are afraid. All across the Ukraine, there's a fear, not a panic, but there's a fear that they'll be blamed for a lot of the problems that are taking place in the Ukraine right now.
The Jewish people in Ukraine know their history and have a reason to fear. Nearly 1 million Ukrainian Jews were killed during the Holocaust, and more than 30,000 of them in the infamous Babi Yar massacre in Kiev in 1941. Now, once again, they see foreign troops on their soil.
When they see an invader coming in who has a hatred for Jewish people, they become afraid.
Michael Otterbeck serves with two organizations that have helped more than 130,000 Jews emigrate from the former Soviet Union to Israel since 1991. He says now many more are looking for a way out to go to the Jewish state.
We have 15 full-time workers and hundreds of volunteers that are working with the Jews that are scattered all across the Ukraine. And we brought out tens of thousands from there. And recently we have seen the people asking for assistance. That number has doubled since all of this has gone on. And they're calling day and night, asking for someone to help them to know how to immigrate to Israel.
Otterbeck says despite the crisis, prophecy is being fulfilled.
If you pull back from all of this and you look at what really is taking place from a spiritual perspective, we're watching prophecy come to pass before our very eyes. And God promised that there would come a day when the Jews would have to come back to their own land.
He says it's time to pray for the Ukraine.
I believe that if believers all over the world would begin praying for the Ukraine, that God would help them in the situation that they are in, and pray that God would spread that throughout the nation and that righteousness would reign once again over that land.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
One of the untold stories of the Holocaust is some of the worst massacres happened in what we now call Ukraine, whether it's the massacre of Odessa or what happened in the autonomous regions around Minsk after the Germans literally let the locals take over the government. They wiped out certain areas, all the Jews living there. And to see the threat of that coming back to that region, we need to pray, and we need to pray for the peace of the Ukraine. Well, the interim president of Ukraine says God has been at work in his country. John Jessup has that story from Washington. John?
Gordon, that's right. Ukraine's President Alexander Turchinov, a devout evangelical Christian, told the Billy Graham Association that stories of God's hand abound in the midst of the Ukrainian crisis. He asked believers worldwide to pray so that peace would return and people would be able to live peacefully. He also said he hoped for victory without an armed conflict with Russia, based on the biblical promise, if God is with us, no one can be against us. You can find a link to the complete interview at our website, cbnnews.com. Well, back here at home, another legal battle over the famous World Trade Center cross. It was a symbol of hope and grace for many after the 9/11 attacks, and it was set to be included in the new World Trade Center Museum opening this year. But a group of atheists is suing the museum to stop them. Dale Hurd has that story.
It's been called the Miracle Cross, formed by two beams from the World Trade Center. The new 9/11 museum wants to put it in its building next year, and most people love the idea.
I lost my good friend, Father Michael Judge, the fire department chaplain. I lost 10 other friends, and this was a sign of consolation. It was never meant to hurt anyone, hurt the atheists, or anything like that.
But atheists said they were hurt. The lawyer for the atheist said his clients suffered physical and emotional pain, including depression, headaches, anxiety, and indigestion. In court, their lawyer said the artifact screams Christianity. He went on to propose a plaque be included in the museum that would read, "Atheists died here too."
What we have here is a definite consecrated religious object. It is not a historical artifact.
But a panel of judges asked what's the difference between a cross at the 9/11 museum and religious objects in other public museums. A lawyer for the 9/11 museum argued rescue workers had a horrific experience after 9/11. They took some comfort in this object. He also argued a plaque for atheists might sound nice, but it's not justified.
Museums don't censor history, they don't make up history, they tell history as it happened, and the cross is part of the history, and a plaque is not.
The 9/11 Museum is slated to open in May. The atheist case was thrown out by a U.S. district judge last year, but the atheist filed an appeal. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
New Jersey Republican Governor Chris Christie and Texas Senator Ted Cruz took strong positions at the Conservative Political Action Conference Thursday, with Christie telling the audience it's time to stop letting the media define the conservative message.
The reason we have to start talking about what we're for and not continuing to rail against what we're against is because of one simple reason. Our ideas are better than their ideas, and that's what we have to stand up for.
CPAC is the largest gathering of conservatives each year. Among those set to speak are Rand Paul and Marco Rubio. Texas Senator Ted Cruz kicked off the event by telling the GOP it's time to take a stand on what it believes.
You want to lose elections? Stand for nothing. Look at the last 4 congressional elections, 06, 08, 10, and 12. 3 of the 4, we followed that strategy. 06, 08, and 12, we put our head down, we stood for nothing, and we got walloped. The one election that was a tremendous election was 2010, when Republicans drew a line in the sand. We said we stand unequivocally against Obamacare, against bankrupting the country, and we won an historic tidal wave of an election.
CBN's David Brody is at CPAC. He'll bring us a complete wrap on Monday's 700 Club. And for more from David, you can check out his blog, The Brody File. It's at cbnnews.com. Well, most of us have struggled with snow, ice, and record-breaking cold this winter, and it's also been tough for many small businesses, which have taken a beating from the brutal weather. Charlene Israel brings us this report.
It's been one of the worst winters in years. Ice and snow, traffic stuck on frozen roads, and some of the coldest temperatures Chicago has ever seen. All those harsh conditions have hurt businesses. GM and Ford report U.S. sales declines last month as frigid temperatures and snowstorms pounded much of the nation. Sales at car dealerships have been frozen.
Nobody comes out. It's just the snow. They're afraid 2 weeks before it, and it takes 2 weeks for them to come back out.
While industry analysts say dealerships in warmer weather states fared well this winter, those affected by the cold and storms are offering more discounts to unload inventory, which mean good deals for consumers. But the auto industry isn't alone. Airlines are also taking a big hit. About 1 million flights canceled this season, costing airlines as much as $500 million. But some businesses are heating up. Roofing contractors are seeing a boom. And thanks to potholes, car repair shops can barely keep up with business.
Our business is through the roof. If I could get more hours out of my guys, I would.
At Ace Hardware, sales of snow blowers, shovels, and other cold weather products are up 135%. And as the frigid weather tightens its grip, winter-weary Americans are longing for warmer days. The travel website JetSetter says bookings for warm destinations are up 38%. Charlene Israel, CBN News.
You may soon be buying computers that don't sit on your desktop. You won't even carry them around like an iPad or smartphone. Instead, they'll be part of your clothing. It's called wearable technology, and it's a fast-growing industry. Computers in all kinds of clothing, from shoes to belts to headgear, along with watches and eyeglasses, will be able to help you communicate with and keep track of other people, including your children. They can also help you stay healthy.
Information that is collected from your fitness tracker can give you so much more. It can provide you the real health insights, the biological age, different risks of health conditions.
But some technology analysts worry about privacy concerns with all the information, personal information rather, that wearable computers will collect.
How it's being used, where it's being stored, is it being stored outside of the U.S.? What are we doing? Are we selling it to advertisers? Are you guys sharing it with my employer? We know about my health. So I think that the vendors have to be very transparent.
Gordon, it's almost as if we're too eager to give away our personal information.
I would agree with that. And then you start getting into who can hack this kind of information. It's not just, what's the company that makes the product? What are they doing with the information? Where are they storing it? Are those servers secure? But this technology runs on RFID, and anyone can pick up that signal that the various devices are giving off. And do you really want a stranger knowing health information, this kind of thing, is to be able to track where you're going? One concern is what are governments doing with it, but another concern is what would hackers do with this kind of information? And do we really want to give up this kind of privacy where people literally you will be able to know is the milk in your refrigerator going stale? That's the kind of detail you can drill down into. Every place you've been, your very steps, your heart rate on those steps, all of these things are now being put into these various devices and into databases. I think we need to really take a long look at, do we want to give up that kind of privacy?
Purdue University has agreed to keep the word God on a plaque honoring a major donor. Dr. Michael McCracken gave more than $12,000 to the school. Purdue asked him to provide wording for a plaque in his honor. It read, "To all those who seek to better the world through the understanding of God's physical laws and innovation of practical solutions." Purdue tried to remove the word God from the plaque, but McCracken sued, claiming the school had violated the First Amendment. The inscription will clarify that the quote is McCracken's and not the school's. A group of students from South Carolina spent a week with Operation Blessing, serving families in need in Texas. The students joined Operation Blessing and Stagecoach Ministries during the 8-day impact trip in San Antonio. They helped distribute food, served the homeless, and loaded hundreds of boxes of food into the vehicles of residents in need, serving an estimated 110 families over the course of one day. Stagecoach Ministries is an OB partner providing help for low-income families in San Antonio year-round. And you can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to their website at ob.org.